Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessica Dudley, and I'm the president and CPO at United Way of Hall County. First and foremost, we would like to thank you for tuning in to our Facebook Live session. I'm here today with three knowledgeable members of our community. David Gladson, Bereavement Hospice of North Georgia Medical Center. Dr. Bonnie Kin, Director of the Master of Science Applied Gerontology Program and Professor of Psychology at Grinnell University, and Pastor Matthew Little with Kingdom Builders Church in Gainesville City Schools. 2020 has been quite a year. Nothing has looked the same or as it should. As we approach the holidays, a time traditionally spent sharing in the company of family and friends, we are seeking ways to reframe and reset our expectations in order to keep our loved ones safe. From finding ways to maintain traditions, connecting with family and friends in a COVID-19 appropriate manner, and coping with loss and grief, today our community experts will share tangible ideas you can utilize with your family this holiday season. So let's jump right into the conversation. Dave, let's start with you. So many people are dealing with loss this year. In this time of social distancing, there may not have been the opportunity for people to have a memorial service or gather to support each other. What are some ways that friends and family can help with the grieving process?
Thank you, Jessica. It's really an honor to get to be here with you all and with Dr. Ken and with Pastor Little and to be a part of this event. We just did, I led a holiday grief seminar for a lot of our families here at the Hospice Northeast Georgia last week. And that was definitely a big part of what we were speaking about. I mean, the holidays normally, honestly, are really hard for those who are grieving. I mean, grief is hard enough. You add all the expectations and the struggles of a normal holiday season into it. But this year, 2020, gosh, I mean, between the pandemic and, the election season and all kind of the cultural struggles that we've been going through, that's not just dividing our country, but also dividing our families. It makes, the holidays especially hard. And especially at a time when we're being told by the CDC today to, stay at home or not travel as much as possible. So it makes it really, really hard. So I think the first thing I would encourage families to do is start with the assumption that these holidays are not going to be normal. They're not going to be like they have been. And I think taking those expectations off the table takes also some of the stress away. It gives us a chance to do the holidays different, and I think it gives us a chance to kind of go back to basics, go back to the things that matter most, not just about the holidays, but also what matters most about our grieving process, but also what matters most about our families. It gets back to the simple, and for a lot of us, I think one of the things I speak to my clients a lot about, and that they struggle a lot about is how family members often we grieve in different ways, and certain members, everyone has a unique relationship with the person who's died. We also have unique personalities, and the way that a spouse will grieve is very different than the way a child will grieve, or a brother or sister will grieve. And then everybody feels like they're on different pages in different places, and they don't quite understand where the other one is. And I hear a lot of times with, for instance, parents who've lost their spouse, and their kids are trying to get them to push and move forward, and move forward. And that causes a lot of pain for spouses who've lost their loved ones, because it's actually one of the, if not the most, but one of the most stressful events that we ever experience in life. And so I really encourage us to go back to the basics, and for family members to really focus on their own grief, whatever that looks like, but then give their loved ones plenty of space to be wherever they are in the emotional grieving process, and especially at the holidays. Because the one thing that we know that will be true this holiday season is the feeling of the absence. Our loved one will not be there. And for those who are grieving the most, the fact that they are not in the room will be the most significant event of the holidays, and the thing that will cause them the most pain. So being able to aware of that being present with one another, whoever your COVID bubble is at the time, that's going to be really, really important. Not pushing our loved ones to be any place that they're not at right now. Give them plenty of flexibility. And then do things like you were talking about memorial services. I think, it's amazing the skill that we're using right now, this Zoom platform. I work with a lot of folks that are not technologically savvy, and they really depend on their children and their grandchildren to help them to come to our grief groups, for instance. And so, if whatever you can do to help set up your loved ones and teach them how to use Zoom or Skype or some other video platform where they're able to connect. Because I think I've actually read the research that, we see a lot of folks here for video counseling. And it's shown that actually video counseling has almost the same efficacy rate that in-person counseling has, which is pretty amazing. So, so teaching your loved one how to use this and setting them up to make sure they have it, they can talk to grandchildren and people and get involved in counseling or whatever those kind of things. And then you can also do your own memorial service. You don't have to wait for a funeral home to open up or somebody to be, church to open up. You can do your own small memorial service as many times as you want to in your backyard. So have those kind of rituals and those things that are going on. And that's how I would encourage families during this holiday season.
Thank you. And can you tell us what are ways the person closest to the loss can cope?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it, Jessica? Because that's the person who's in most pain most of the time. And again, recognizing, as I said before, how hard this particular holiday season is, and then giving yourself plenty of space, plenty of room, be where you need to be. I often I describe it like that we all have a grief bucket or a stress bucket. It's only so big. Some of us have bigger buckets than others. And we're constantly, things are going into that bucket. And we're under normal circumstances, hopefully we have the skills and the people in our lives that helps us clean it out, keep it cleaned out. But when grief happens, when loss happens, our bucket gets absolutely full and overflowing. And so we don't know what to do with that, and we feel overwhelmed. And I'm sure Dr. Ken could probably speak to how cortisol and everything like that is a part of this and what's happening in our body and our inability to deal with stress at times like this. But if what we have to do is be realistic with ourselves, I often say, just for an image, to give us an image, 85% of our emotional energy is being spent on grief under normal circumstances. So that gives us 15% left to deal with the rest of life as it is. Everything from brushing our teeth in the morning to fixing us coffee, fixing a meal, to buying presents, everything that the holidays involve. And so just, again, giving yourself plenty, listen to your heart, know your limits, and give yourself permission to say no, or not this year, or maybe next year. You think about the holidays, there's all these expectations about decorations and gifts and cards, and everybody's got certain needs, and they want, somebody to be at grandma's house and somebody else wants to be at the other grandma's house, whatever, you have to be able to, there's things you may not be able to do this year. I love the story of, the Christmas Story, you'll shoot your eye out, kid movie, and at the
Watch
end,
it every year.
they don't get the turkey, the turkey, whatever happens with the turkey and the red cabbage, and they end up at the restaurant eating duck, and this year you may be at a restaurant or someplace eating duck, and that's okay, under normal circumstances, okay, but especially this year. Stay safe and be good to yourself, and give yourself extra wide margins for whatever the season brings and wherever you are at the time. Be flexible.
Dave, thank you. And what are some resources available to those dealing with grief, and where might a senior adult or caretaker find them?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I would say there's two kinds of resources. There's one that are kind of your internal resources. They're the easy ones that you always have available or they'll be near. And then there's external resources that you have to reach out for. And I would just say, first of all, your internal resources is just some simple things like taking good care of yourself. I often tell my patients or my clients, you've been caring for your loved one for 4 weeks, 4 years, 10 years, whatever it's been, and they've been your patient and you've been there caring for them. Well, now you're hurting and you're caring for yourself. So make sure you carve out that time to do that. And it can be just simple things like, moving your body, making sure you drink plenty of water, because if you don't, you dehydrate and it feels like depression. It's one of the byproducts of that. Try to eat healthy foods. Don't don't throw in all the comfort foods that can make us feel really bad as you can. And be willing to receive help. Be willing to ask for help as much as possible. And then get as plenty of hugs and touches in as you can within your COVID bubble, whoever that is. Do that, because that's so important. But then on the outside, I would say one of my go-tos for grief support is Dr. Alan Wolfelt of the Center for Life and Loss, or Loss and Life Transition. And he's put out some wonderful books, including Understanding Your Grief, that I use with all my grief groups. But then also he has a book called Healing Your Holiday Grief, 100 Practical Ideas to Help You Through the Holidays. And it's an excellent resources, easy, one idea per page, lots of white space. And so I would encourage people to look at that. Look at opentohope.com is another great resource. And then the grieftoolbox.com is also a great resource. And then I'll tell you a little bit later about some other opportunities for like counseling and support groups and things like that. So
thank you so much. Thank you. Pastor Little, I'm going to come on to you. So what are some creative adjustments that you are seeing in faith communities which allow church members to remain engaged and safe?
Well, one of the, and again, I thank you for this opportunity. We're certainly honored, to be on with such brilliant minds. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I try to give what I can. But
we're lucky to have you.
One of the things that churches have had to do was adjust to what we have done for hundreds of years, that is meeting on Sunday morning. Depending on the size of your ministry, you either met at 11 a.m. or if you have a larger ministry, you have 2 or 3 services. And, the pandemic has caused many of us to have to shift our levels of creativity to figure out how do we still engage a demographic that is the most faithful. I have a young church. I've planted a church. We celebrated 5 years in March, and then the pandemic hit. So we literally went from celebrating, our 5 years to now adjusting everything that we did to digital worship. And it's a fact, the most faithful and the most committed to attending in-person worship are those who are the baby boomers or the generation under that. The millennials, they will come, or they would just watch it on Facebook Live or whatever streaming device you have. And so we had to think about, what do we do to that faithful demographic that has really, in a sense, depended on this as part of their socialization, if you will. And so what we've done, we've sent out gift cards just to let them know that we were thinking about them. We understand that because of not really having access to go to the grocery stores and things of that nature, or money may be a little bit tight as a result of certain things, that we wanted to show them that we are still thinking about them by just a small gesture such as that. Other churches who are maybe a little bit larger and have a slightly bigger budget have done care packages where they have sent baskets, or they drop baskets off to their senior adults in their congregations. And I can't remember what ministry it was, but they had to revisit CDs. Yes, they had to revisit CDs because while majority of it was on Facebook Live and streaming on their websites, once the in-person worship had ceased to a degree, they had to figure out, how do we still get a word of encouragement to our senior demographic And that old duplicator that they felt they would never need again had to come out of retirement, and it's not relevant because most of them still had CD players. I don't have one, but I download and podcasts and all of that stuff. But that's what some of ministries, what my ministry, what we have done, and we're looking at the holidays that are coming up, and how do we still minister to them, if you will, and show them that we are still thinking about them, because they've been isolated so long. They've been isolated so long, and after a while, and those especially who are skilled in the psychological aspect of things, know that isolation is not good. After a certain amount of time, it begins to start getting into your psyche, and so whatever we can do to continue to let them know that you haven't been forgotten, that we're still thinking about you, is so vitally important. And so those are some of the things I know that pastors that I'm close to have done in this abnormal season that we're in.
Thank you, Pastor Little. What are some creative adjustments that you are seeing in faith communities which allow church members to remain engaged and safe? You just mentioned the CDs. In fact, my car doesn't even have a CD player anymore.
Right.
But what are some other ways that you're seeing?
Well, the technology boom is what it is in terms of Facebook Live attendees. I have been very creative in getting our older demographic to join the Facebook Live community. Now, what that has caused many times while I'm live on Wednesday nights, I will get a Facebook phone call from one of the older members. And like, okay, we sent them the link, and they're trying to figure out how to get on. And sometimes I've had to abruptly, in the middle of my Wednesday night digital Bible study, tell my wife, sweetheart, can you call this person and help them get on? I think they're trying to get on, but they keep calling my phone through Facebook Messenger because they're not hitting the link, they're hitting the phone. We've also created, for those who don't feel comfortable in being on Facebook or YouTube, we have the conference line. We keep that open every Sunday and every Wednesday, and show them how to get on. And we do. We have that aspect of it as well. So those are some of the creative things that I know that I've had to do. I have a good amount of millennials, so that is always a challenge in terms of keeping the engagement level high. So outside of our standard Sunday digital worship and our Wednesday, in fact, our Wednesday night Bible study has been digital since 2016. We had a lot of our members that were in the central Atlanta area. And I'm sure you guys remember when the bridge burned and collapsed there in Midtown. It was difficult for them to get to our Wednesday night service because we were in the heart of Atlanta. And so I had a pastor friend say, man, you may want to try something different that probably no one else is really doing. And that is take your Bible study midweek completely digital and see what happens. And so I did. And I had more people on that I had in person. So we've been doing that since 2016. So the adjustment there hasn't really been difficult for us. It was more so, how do we engage more people to be a part of that? So in addition to that, we've created a digital community, what we call our digital fellowship community. And it's kind of like small groups in a digital platform. And we started that back in August, and it's gone great. And I think what we're going to do now is just kind of open it up. It was really for membership only, just to kind of see how it does. And I think in 2021, we're just going to build on it and open it up to whoever wants to come. And we discuss books and time for prayer and things of that nature. We also, our women's ministry, every other Tuesday, we have a prayer call that eventually we're going to push that to a digital platform just to keep people engaged, because we don't know how long this is going to go. And our senior adults, they need to see faces. They need to be able to hear voices. I send messages during the summer, especially. I sent a lot of what we call digital messages, where I got my iPhone and did my iMovie, and I sent it to their cell phone so they could see and hear my voice and let them know that you're not forgotten. Because one thing about senior adults is that they are fearful of being forgotten. I've observed that with senior pastors who were transitioning to retirement. And one of the struggles they always had of leaving the pulpit was because when I leave the pulpit, will they forget me? and I'll just be off in the corner, and the new guy is where all the attention goes to now. And so that's very important to try to keep them engaged and gently push them to a digital if you can. There's some who just won't do it, which is why we have the conference line, that if you don't want to do the Zoom fellowship that we created and everything else, we still have the conference line. Still got the old landline. I'm still paying for it. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have it. You know,
My dad is one of them.
So those are the things that we've done from a creative standpoint. And, you know, because again, we don't know how long this cloud is going to be over us. And I'm anticipating the in-person worship, at least for my ministry, because we've had those who were infected by COVID, and thank God that they did recover and they're doing well. But that apprehensiveness is still there in many cases. And so it may not be almost to February before we can come back. So we have to continue to look at different ways that we can create a space for our senior adults and let them know that they are a part of the fellowship community, as well as others.
I really love how creative you've gotten. Thank you for sharing that. And can you explain how many people or how people may be able to bring church traditions into their homes this holiday season to reframe these special moments?
One of the things that I have consistently pushed in this pandemic season is that now you have to create a sanctuary in your home. And not to become overly theological in this moment, but I am a pastor, so I guess that's what I do. But in the Bible, you know, the homes in the early part of church history, post crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the homes were the sanctuaries. They had the temple, where they all gathered to worship and to offer of a sacrifice, if you will, not from killing animals as they did in the Old Testament, but come to offer up worship and sacrifice of themselves to God. But yet the home was still the sanctuary, and there were small groups in every home where they traveled from house to house. And so, because we really can't travel because of social distancing, but one thing that I've impressed upon our membership, and I do have a global reach, and so you know, I realize that my message is not just for kingdom builders, it really is for the faith community, is that you now have to make your house the sanctuary. We have a section in our house where we do record our Sunday worship services and what have you, but it is a place that is designated as the sanctuary. You know, so when our children come in this area, there's no playing. This is sanctuary time, okay? It is sanctuary time. And so that's what you're gonna have to really do, is now bring the church, if you will, to your home. And I encourage, you know, those who are faith community, that shouldn't be strange. I'm a firm believer that worship ought to reflect what happens at home. You know, in the sanctuary, we have the word of God that's being preached. We have worship through song, and then we have fellowship with each other. And so if we're worshiping, if we're praying, if we're reading the word, and we're having fellowship, then when we come together, it's strange, right? You don't need the praise team to really kind of pump you up, right? But it's already happening in your home. And so that's what you're really going to have to do. Thanksgiving is going to be different. Christmas is going to be different. But if you make your home reflective of that, then that gives you a sense of connection, I believe.
Thank you so much. And so I'll open these next questions up to both of you. How can people prioritize their holiday activities so they don't feel overwhelmed trying to make up for the loss of more traditional activities? And Dave, I know you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, remembering that this is going to be different. It's you know, if you can kind of change it a little bit, you know, and where you think, I know it's hard to, I almost want to say this is an adventure we're on. And that may be a little hard for those who are struggling with grief to feel like this is an adventure. It's more like a, you know, they're trudging through the wilderness kind of experience right now. But, you know, but deciding, like, if my energy is limited over the next, is right now, and it's going to be over the next 6 weeks as we go through all the different holidays that are coming ahead, you know, then deciding what is important, you know, looking at what is really important to me about the holidays. Is it spending time with my grandchildren? Is it making sure that they have the gifts that I want to give them? is it making sure the meal is there? Is it making sure we remember my loved one? What is it about the holidays that's important? And then also what do I need to do to be safe and to feel safe for me and my family? What does that look like? And then once you kind of determine that and know what's kind of on the top, make sure you do those things and know what you can let go of, what will not. You'll be okay if when January 1st or February 15th rolls around, okay, we didn't do those things, but it's okay. I did the most important things. And then take whatever you have and adapt and adjust and try to be as flexible as possible while we're in this kind of exile kind of period. And then plan, planning what you're doing, writing it down, and then trying to communicate it to the other folks in your life. That relieves stress. That lets, when I have it down on paper and I know what's happening and everybody kind of is on the same page, then I can breathe a little bit. It's not bouncing around in my head so much. So, that's what I would really encourage folks to do. And then just keep in mind, we've been through things like this before. We've had to make adjustments. A lot of our older folks will remember, but they may not quite remember the pandemic of 1818 or 1918 and 19 and 20, but they're surely going to remember, the Depression and World War, the World Wars or World War II. We went through with the polio epidemic and all these different things that have happened over the years, and we had to adjust. We had to do things differently, and they made it. They got a lot of resiliency, and we'll make it too. We have a lot of resiliency. Our millennials, Pastor Little, I know, is probably the next great generation that that's coming up, and so we'll make it, and we'll be on the other side with a story or two.
Exactly.
I
I think,
Little.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, Jessica. I'm sorry. David said something that was very critical, is being okay with saying no to certain things. I think there's always, outside of the pandemic, there was always a certain amount of pressure, for us to be involved in everything, especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Being involved in every activity, and it can become quite stressful. And then now you add the pandemic on top of that, you have to really think about it. And I love what he said about planning what is really important, prioritizing what you are willing to do, and then being okay with what you're not comfortable with. And sometimes our senior adults feel the need to ingratiate themselves in activities because they long for the connection. But sometimes we have to help them out and say, listen, if it has to happen with a very small group, then that's the way that it is. In the early part, we did Zoom family gatherings. It was interesting when you're trying to have everybody sing certain birthdays and sing happy birthday, and the timing is off. But but the fact of being able to see each other's faces, and you have some who were not as technically savvy, so you can hear the every other outburst. But what am I doing here? I can't see this person, right? But that's something that we always will remember and laugh about, and we'll be able to laugh about. Like, do you remember when we had to do this? And it was crazy, but we still adjusted. We still adapt to where we are. We are a nation of resiliency. My grandmother lived through all of that. She's now passed on and what have you. But just hearing those stories about how they still adjusted and how they still survived, and that is something that I think that is innate within us as humans, is to adjust. But being okay, being okay. And sometimes those of us who have parents that are older, it's hard raising a grown child when you try to tell them that we're not going to do it this way, we have to do a little bit differently. My mother, for one, she's very super cautious, so she is the first to tell you I love you, but stay where you are, and we'll get through this. She said that several times, and we've had a few moments we've been able to meet 15, 20-minute meetings, even though they live an hour and 40 minutes away. We were driven an hour and 40 minutes just so they could see the grandkids. And she'd be like, okay, well, we hate for you to leave so fast, but it was glad seeing you, but you got to go. Your time limit is up. So, I mean, you have some that will understand, but then there's also maybe some in your family that will still long for that. And you may have to help them to deal with that reality that things may be a little different right now.
Pastor Lo, you actually just touched on my next question. So
Right.
might need to be stated that some people may actually be glad that this provides a quieter, less hectic holiday season. What would either of you say to those people so that they can honor that without feeling the guilt?
Well, I was one that even before the pandemic, I was never guilty about wanting my space. There was, after certain days, my wife and I would drive separately. And I would say, if you want to stay at 11, 12, that's fine, but I'm going home because it can become so overwhelming. But what I will say, while you are enjoying your space, don't go into a complete isolation. Still, connect with people via, calling them on the phone or send them a text message. Still there still need to be some sense of connection, but don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty by saying no, or don't feel guilty by asking, well, how many people are going to be in attendance? Because unfortunately, we have some in our own family that feel that this pandemic is not as bad as the media is trying to depict it. Is all propaganda, but the numbers don't lie. So the numbers don't lie. So it's okay for you to say that, well, how many people are going to be there? I'm not comfortable with that amount of people coming, so I'm going to sit this one out and be perfectly okay, because you have to protect your health. Be very selfish with the health of your older parent, older aunt, older uncle, whoever that you have a connection with, that you are responsible for making sure that they survive this season. Okay, be very selfish with that. If you have a brother or sister that wants to bring certain people over, it's okay for you to say, for the sake of mom, or for the sake of dad, or aunt or uncle, we can't allow them to come. Okay, that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think by now, I hope that everyone has a level of sensitivity to that request, and not make anyone feel bad just because it's the holidays. We have the memories and we hold on to that. But for right now, I just think it's just wisdom. Again, biblically speaking, it says wisdom is a principal thing. So let's use wisdom in this moment.
Thank you.
I
And
love
sorry,
That's okay.
that part of Zoom.
Yes, exactly. The Zoom bump.
Sorry.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Pastor Little, about, giving ourselves permission to put limits on our time and our energy and our needs, and saying no and not yet and I can't, all those kind of things. I feel like that's a lot of my work with our grieving clients, is helping folks to understand that this is normal. This is a normal part of the grieving process. It's hard, and this is how it shows up. But then also, based on myself and my own personality and my needs, this is what I need, and I don't need that, and being able to say no. I just, last week in our grief seminar we did here, and with some clients this, I've been working with over the last few weeks, they're just saying, I can't do the gathering. I just can't. I need my time with my deceased loved one. I need, they may have lost the physical presence of their loved one, but they haven't lost the relationship, and they never lose the relationship. And so they just said, I need that time with just me and him, or me and her, and so they're choosing not to do a lot of the things that we think, and I really encourage them to do so. And then the second thing I would say to that, Jessica, is just really getting back to basics. You can focus in, we talk about all the time, don't forget the reason for the season, don't forget the reasons for the seasons. We've got a lot of seasons coming up, not just Christmas, not just Thanksgiving. Hanukkah's coming up on the 10th of December for 10 days. And that's a beautiful tradition for all of us to focus in on 2020, because it was a time in which, it was deep darkness nationally. for the people, and they literally had run out of oil, literally for their light, for their candles. And so it was like, how do we find the light in the middle of the darkness? How do we find the hope in the middle of everything's out of control? And it was a time in which, you know, the menorah lamp stayed lit for 8 days, even though they only had enough oil for 1 day, you know. And a lot of us are feeling like our oil has run out. We're tired. We're ready for 2021 to show up and for 2020 to be behind us, you know. But, you know, if we can focus on the reasons, you know, the spiritual reasons for these holidays to begin with, we can actually find some strength to help us through, even though they don't look like what the hectic nature of what they look like. And that can actually be very, very welcome to us, as not just as individuals who are grieving, but as a people too.
Thank you. So are there any resources that either of you know of that can help senior adults and their caregivers during the holiday season, like food delivery services, grief support groups that may be meeting virtually, any other important resources you think families may be able to utilize this holiday season?
Well, I would say, first of all, is, you know, we actually have a really strong bereavement center here with the Hospice of Northeast Georgia, and we're seeing folks one-on-one. We're meeting with them. You know, not everybody uses Zoom, and a lot of folks find it helpful to just use the old digital technology of the telephone. And it's amazing how helpful that is for folks. So, you know, we're able to support people here. You know, if you want to know more about that, it's at njhs.com/hospice. We're actually we're in the middle of a grief group right now that we're doing online. We've been doing online grief groups now since May, every other month. And they've been very, very well attended. We'll be starting another one in the middle of January, starting January 19th. We'll do that over Zoom. So if you don't want to know anything about that or need the extra kind of one-on-one support, we're happy to be supportive of you in that way, and just reach out to us and let us know. And then I would also mention a great resource is if you go to psychologytoday.com and look for the Find a Therapist app on that. You click on Find a Therapist, and you can narrow it down to Gainesville or Cornelia or Clarksville or wherever you're at, and the issue you're dealing with and the kind of insurance you're on. And then you can find a group of counselors, and you can read through their biographies and their ways of doing and who they are, and see their pictures, and then maybe find some extra support that way too, to help through the holidays.
Thank you. Pastor Little, did you have any resources that you're aware of?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I of course, if I kind of sat down and looked at my my list, like, you can go here and here. But what I will say is that, you know, encourage families, you know, to do your research out there. And there are outreach ministries that will do food delivery services in this pandemic. You know, as David talked about, if there's anyone who's dealing with grief, grief is, you know, dominant in this season, probably more than we realize, and not just from the loss of the you know, from COVID-19. I often share that there are people that are dealing with the grief of a loved one who died of cancer or an abrupt heart attack and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different things going on, but you know, there are faith-based ministries that have food delivery services. I do know St. John Baptist Church. I think every Tuesday they have the food bank there. Pastor Stephen Samuel and the St. John Baptist Church ministry there, they have a food bank that is still active. And so certainly you can reach out to them, and they'll do everything they can to assist with food deliveries and things of that nature. So, of course, my ministry, you know, we consider ourselves a global ministry. You know, we have sent gift cards to Publix, you know, for groceries and things of that nature. And certainly we would deliver it, you know, if need be. So we have not allowed this pandemic to restrict us from doing the things that we know that we are called to serve our community.
Thank you both. Is there anything else that you feel would be helpful to senior adults as we continue to move into the holiday season? I know I've asked you guys quite a bit.
I would say, just, you know, if you don't do anything else, create the space to remember your loved ones, remember and honor their memory. A lot of folks feel like they go through the holidays, if I just don't think about it or try not to, or we don't talk, and they'll go through the whole holiday gathering and nobody will mention their name, and so that hurts people who are grieving so badly. So make sure you set aside that time, have an empty chair, keep their space at the table and put a candle there. Let your grandson set in his space or some way, go through the photo albums. There's different linking objects that people have, that make them feel close to their loved one, or place a wreath. Go to the graveside and place a wreath, a Christmas wreath, or whatever your holiday is, and place it at their graveside. And do ways that you can honor and love your loved one during this time.
Thank you. And I will add that Dr. Ken let us know that she was having some internet issues, and so she was not able to hop back on, but she is going to be getting us all of the information in a PDF form that can be downloaded and found on our website. And so I apologize for that, but I'm so grateful to each of you from all different areas who are so willingly gave your time to provide resources and guidance and encouragement throughout the series. It is so true that we are stronger when we are able to count on each other. As we enter into this holiday season, as different as it may be, I am grateful for these and so many others who serve this community. And for more information on the Reach Out campaign and the community blogs, video testimonials, and resources available in Hall County, please visit www.unitedwayhallcounty, all spelled out, .org/reach out. Thank you.